Welcome to our lesson on the simple past tense. The simple past tense is used to describe actions that happened and were completed in the past. It is one of the most common tenses in English and is essential for discussing events that have already occurred. For regular verbs, we typically add ed to the base form. For example, walk becomes walked. However, many common verbs are irregular and have unique past forms, such as go, which becomes went. Understanding the simple past tense will help you talk about your experiences, tell stories, and describe historical events. In this lesson, we will explore how to form the simple past tense, use it in sentences, and ask questions. Let's get started. Sample sentences. She walked to the store yesterday. They visited their grandparents last weekend. I watched a movie last night. He played soccer with his friends on Saturday. We cooked dinner together last evening. Forming the simple past tense with regular verbs is straightforward. You simply add ed to the base form of the verb. For example, work becomes worked and play becomes played. Be mindful of the spelling changes with verbs that end in E where you just add D, like love to loved. Verbs ending in a consonant followed by Y change Y to I before adding ed, like study to studied. Practicing these patterns will help you become comfortable with using regular verbs in the past tense. Let's look at some examples to see how this works in sentences. Sample sentences. She worked late last night. They played basketball after school. He loved the gift you gave him. We studied hard for the exam. The dog jumped over the fence. Irregular verbs do not follow the standard ed ending rule for the past tense. Each irregular verb has its own unique past form that you need to memorize. For instance, go becomes went, see becomes saw, and take becomes took. These verbs are commonly used, so learning their past forms is crucial for fluency in English. The more you practice, the easier it will be to remember these irregular forms. Here are some examples to help you get started. Sample sentences. She went to the market last Sunday. He saw a shooting star last night. They took a trip to Paris last summer. I made a cake for her birthday. We drank coffee at the new cafe. To form negative sentences in the simple past tense, use did not or didn't followed by the base form of the verb. For example, I did not go or she didn't see. It's important to remember that the main verb returns to its base form after did not or didn't. This rule applies to both regular and irregular verbs. Negative sentences allow us to express actions that did not happen in the past. Let's look at some examples to understand this better. Sample sentences. I did not watch the movie. She didn't visit her friend. They did not finish their homework. He didn't like the food. We did not go to the park. To ask questions in the simple past tense, use did followed by the subject and the base form of the verb. For example, did you see the movie, or did they arrive on time? The auxiliary verb did indicates that the action is in the past, and the main verb stays in its base form. This structure is used for both regular and irregular verbs. Asking questions in the simple past is essential for gathering information about past events. Let's look at some example questions. Sample sentences. Did you finish your homework? Did she call you yesterday? Did they travel last month? Did he enjoy the concert? Did we miss the bus? Using time expressions with the simple past tense helps clarify when an action happened. Common time expressions include yesterday, last week, last month, 2 days ago, and in 2020. These expressions are usually placed at the beginning or end of the sentence. For instance, I visited my grandparents last weekend or last weekend, I visited my grandparents. Time expressions provide context and make your sentences more precise. Let's see some examples of how to use these time expressions in sentences. Sample sentences. She completed the project yesterday. They moved to a new house last month. I called him 2 days ago. He joined the team in 2020. We went to the beach last summer. The simple past tense is commonly used in storytelling to describe events that have already happened. When telling a story, you set the scene and describe actions in chronological order. For example, once upon a time, there was a young girl who lived in a village. She loved to explore the forest and find hidden treasures. Using the simple past tense in storytelling helps listeners or readers understand the sequence of events. Let's look at a short story example using the simple past tense. Sample sentences. Once upon a time, there was a young prince. He found a magical sword in the forest. The villagers celebrated his victory. She rescued the kitten from the tree. They lived happily ever after. The simple past tense is also used to describe past habits and routines. When talking about actions that happen regularly in the past but do not happen anymore, use the simple past tense. For example, I walked to school every day when I was a child, or she visited her grandmother every Sunday. These sentences describe actions that were habitual in the past. This use of the simple past tense helps paint a picture of how things used to be. Let's look at some more examples. Sample sentences. I played soccer every weekend when I was young. She visited her grandmother every Sunday. We watched cartoons every morning. He read a book before bed each night. They went to the beach every summer. The simple past tense is often used to report past events, especially in news and conversations. When talking about what happened at a specific time, use the simple past. For example, the team won the championship last year, or she announced her retirement yesterday. This tense provides clear information about events that have been completed. Using the simple past in reporting helps convey facts and details accurately. Let's see some examples of how to use the simple past tense to report events. Sample sentences. The team won the match yesterday. She announced the news last night. They launched the product last month. He discovered the error last week. We celebrated our anniversary last year. Practice is key to mastering the simple past tense. To improve your skills, try writing sentences about your past experiences, telling stories, or describing historical events. You can also read books or articles written in the past tense to see how it's used in context. Practice with a partner by asking and answering questions about past activities. The more you use the simple past tense, the more natural it will become. Let's end this lesson with some practice sentences for you to try on your own. Sample sentences. I traveled to Japan last year. She cooked a delicious meal last night. They organized a surprise party for him. He painted a beautiful picture. We attended a music festival last summer.